The Akashic Records. Welcome everyone. I'm Paul Stewart. This is PS Paul Stewart. And this episode we're going to be featuring Chris Wilson. We're delighted to have her here. She's going to talk about her work with the Akashic Records, how she discovered it, what they are, how they can help you in this time that we live in, and maybe a bit about what she sees is going on in the world at the moment and how we can move forward together. So I'm Paul. And when I started my personal training career in 1997, at the same time, I was very interested in metaphysics and personal development and the whole mind, body, spirit field. And I was able, with my work, to travel around the world, go to sacred sites, experience different cultures. And it's been a really wonderful time. And I'm well aware of the amount of work people are doing now in the personal development field. And I'm very interested with this channel to put it out there and to support people in their processes and to stimulate them to work with their higher self and to be the best they can and just to naturally ripple out into the world all these wonderful potentials. So with that in mind, it's a real delight to welcome Chris. Chris, welcome.
Hello.
Thanks so much for being here. And today, I know you're in Wellington, New Zealand. How is it today there?
Oh, a bit colder than it should be, but no, the sun's out. It's good.
Well, I'd love to get straight into it, Chris, with you, because I know you've got a wealth of experience and insight about the Akashic Records. So could you tell us, what are the Akashic Records?
So the Akashic Records are an energetic record of every experience we've ever had as souls on Earth. And they've always been around, like they've recorded our lifetimes and they've always been around, but now they're suddenly opening up to many, many more people. And what I'd like to say is they're trending at the moment. In the past, they were sort of only really the preserve of a few people, but now, in recent years, as part of the process, we're going through on Earth of Ascension, moving from the third dimensional vibration and into the higher consciousness of the fifth dimension. The Akashic Records have a very important part to play because they're connected to the past. They can connect us with the present, but they also hold the potentials for the future. But basically, they're just an energy that almost anybody can tap into. I've taught hundreds, if not thousands, of people how to do it, and it's just not a difficult process. And it's just such a helpful tool because it connects us with our soul history, our soul record, really.
Yes. Well, have you always been aware of these, or when did you become aware of the Akashic Records, and how did that happen?
Well, I sort of I started in the 90s. I sort of set off on a bit of a spiritual journey, and I knew what they were, but I didn't really get interested in them until it was about 2010. And at that time, I was like 3 years into a very difficult family situation, a big crisis in my family with my oldest daughter, who basically at the age of 18 just spiraled down suddenly into a very severe depression, and all she wanted to do was die. And that was heartbreaking to me because, well, as a mother, obviously, but it was difficult because I'd always known that she found life on Earth hard. And I thought back to, when I first held her as a little baby, and she sort of gave me this terrified look of, oh God, I'm back, what have I done? And at the age of 16, she had a traumatic event, which probably was a trigger, for what happened later, but I just feel there was something else going on. And I suspected there was something happening at the level of the soul, some sort of deep trauma. And I just kept getting Akashic Records, Akashic Records. I thought, God. And I just intuitively knew that if I could somehow find a way to access them, I could probably get the answers to my questions and just see that bigger picture, and it would help me. And so I went online and I Googled, accessing the Akashic Records, and I got Linda Howe popped up, and she's the lady in Canada who's really well known for this and like one of the pioneers. And I bought her book, and I bought her CD set with some birthday money that my mother gave me. And at the time, she said, "What are you wasting your money for?" on that, and buy a nice piece of pottery, She's still alive, my mum, like she's 93, 4 nearly. And but what she doesn't realise, it just has been just so helpful for me. Like, on a personal level, it just did give me those answers. It helped me see the bigger picture. I could understand, what was happening with my daughter. Like, she was very rejected anything spiritual in those days. So I couldn't really teach her how to do it or give her the tools to help herself. But, it just helped me. The main thing that helped me was the energy of the Akashic Records, because what I realised is the more I was in that energy, the better I felt. The energy's fifth dimensional. It lifts you up. It surrounds you with love. It's very healing. It's very compassionate. And, it helped to sort of ask questions like, why did I choose to be? I'll call Alice by her name because I have, with her permission, written a couple of books and I mention her in those. But why did I choose to be her mother? What is my contract? What can I do to help her? And I got all this really detailed information that was immensely helpful. But I think the thing that helped me the most was the energy, because after about 6 months of having the Akashic Records open a lot and being in the energy, I realised that I just felt I'd been transported to a different place. I wasn't so anxious or stressed or fearful, and nothing had changed sort of in the outside world. Like, my daughter was still in the psych ward and still desperate not to be here, but I had changed and I was coping better. And I thought, God, if these tools can help me, they can help a lot of other people as well. And then I just thought that's what, I have to do, is teach these tools to people.
Yes.
And
Well,
that's
makes me
what I
ask, how did it go for Alice? I mean, and how did you then? You were feeling better, I suppose. As a mother, that put you in a better position to do more. How did that play out?
Well, she's still struggling, but in a lot of ways, her life has gone from tragic to magic, and that's the title of my book, by the way, the latest.
Yes, let's look at that.
And
Now
have
you
it's
got
been,
your other book here. You've got another book called The Magic of the Akashic Records.
thanks for asking. So this is book one, and we'll get back to talking about Alice. But this
Yes. Okay.
this sort of was quite therapeutic, this book, because it just helped me to make sense of what had been happening. And there's a lot of sort of Alice's story in this book, but in the next book, it's more, it's on a wider scale. It's more the story of what's happening with humanity.
Yes.
Like, I carry on the family story, but it's really talking about the whole planet and how we're going from tragic to magic. But getting back to Alice, she's in a much better place now. She's nearly 33. She's engaged to be married. She's in love. It's an interesting past life story about her fiance, and it's in my latest book.
Oh.
They did know each other in her immediate past life, which was very traumatic.
Yes.
And he sort of lost her in that life. He tried to find her, but she wasn't around, and then now he's found her again. So, it's a lovely little story. No, so we're in a good place now.
Well, it must be pretty fantastic for you to be able to. Firstly, you felt better, I understood, and then you were able to impact a loved family member. It's pretty nice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good. And even though, like, Alice has allowed me to help her now, but I'm very much like, you can't force anything on your own children. It's funny how, like, everyone else's children will let you help them. Sometimes your own won't, but I think that's quite normal. But, I sort of got to the point where I thought, I just have to get on with my life. Like, I was always there as a support. But, if you do follow your heart and follow your passion, it does help everybody around you.
Yes.
And I think, sort of on an energetic level, the fact that, I've been happy, I found happiness, and I've found this wonderful work which I'm passionate about, and lifted my vibration, because the Akashic Records do lift your vibration, has, it's definitely has helped her by extension. She's benefited from it.
Yes. Well, I think sometimes if we leave the time factor out of it and allow the process, it takes a lot of pressure off, doesn't it?
I know, and I know. So there's so many ways, that they have helped me. Like, it's just been incredible. And now, like, it is my privilege to teach a lot of wonderful people. So,
yeah. Well, how are you structuring your teaching work? How does that work? Are you doing courses, or I know you're doing some courses. Are you doing one-on-ones? And tell us how you're set up.
I do a few one-on-one, but sometimes it takes a while to get in with the appointments for those. I'm focusing a lot on the teaching, and I do a level 1 and level 2 and a level 3 course, and the level 1 course is teaching students how to access the Akashic Records to get information for themselves, how to get information to pass on to other people. And the level 2 course is more about healing, the healing potentials of the Akashic Records and how to use them for like emotional and physical healing. And the level 3 is actually a residential course at the moment, like I run in New Zealand, but I just had to, because of COVID, I just had to postpone the next one that's coming up. But I know that I will be running those in the future, and there'll probably be some sort of online form of that at some stage.
Yeah. Can you talk about the physical healing aspect a little bit? What have you noticed when people work with the Akashic Records? What does that look like?
Well, I could talk a lot about physical healing because I wrote in my book in chapter 8, it's about physical healing, but emotional healing is so important at the moment because as you know, like the shift is happening, the ascension process into this higher vibration, and we've got a lot to release. So it's like we can't carry the heavy baggage of 3D with us. And if, like, you're an old soul and you've had many life experiences on Earth, there's a lot to shift. There's a lot to release. So what I work with people to help them clear is just limiting beliefs. Things like life is a struggle. I deserve to suffer. I'm not good enough. It's probably. And if we've been on Earth in many, many bodies and many, many lifetimes, there's a lot of those beliefs. Also, just sabotaging patterns, things like self-sacrifice. That's a big one for a lot of us. And excuse me, and fears, like the fear of abandonment is quite a big one. The fear of rejection, the fear of persecution, just all those sort of old threads that we're still sort of carrying in our field and on a cellular level from other lifetimes. And as we move more into this beautiful 5th dimensional energy, which first came in, well, it did actually come in in 1987. A wee bit of it came in with the harmonic and astrological, the harmonic convergence, but it came in much more intensely since the 21st of December 2012, so that was called so that sort of happened then, and since then it's just coming in all the time, more and more and more and more. This light is pouring in, and so everything that doesn't sort of resonate at that, at the level of light or with that light is coming up to be released. And this huge thing, and as it comes up, to let go, it can sometimes manifest as a physical ailment. It can sometimes, manifest, and sometimes we just feel the feeling so intensely, we feel like it's all happening again. But sometimes, often that's a good sign because it means we're letting go of it. So it's a difficult time on Earth. What I understand is that, there are other places off this planet that have been through this process, but planet Earth is going through it much more quickly and much more intensely than any other star system sort of ever has. And I think that probably won't be a surprise to people because it's definitely like full on energy at the moment. It's really game on, and we're all feeling it and seeing it, and all the sort of shadow, the darkness is sort of surfacing, and and with not just in society but and globally, but within ourselves. So the healing process is really important. And when I started out, it was just quite a simple process. The very first people I worked with in the Akashic Records, I was just giving readings. And then I got sort of, what happens when you're a healer is often when you're actually working with the people, and you'd probably know this, Paul, is you get sort of told what to do next. So when I'm in that beautiful space, I just sort of guided what intuitively I feel I have to do. And sometimes you feel like at the end, you think, God, what just happened? that was weird, or where did I go? But, then you see the person smiling at you, and you know that, you've facilitated something quite powerful. So the important thing with the healing process is to start it with an intention. I think the most important attribute of quantum energy, and I would say that the Akashic Records take you directly into a quantum space because it's 5th dimensional. it's got amazing attributes, quantum energy, but the most important attribute would be its ability to respond to intention. So you state an intention, and what I do is I always write it down, like the words come into my head, I write it down, and then I talk to the person. I say, what do you think? And 99% of the time they say, no, that's great. That's, sometimes, they can change it if they want to. I often get Saint Germain in.
Oh, yes.
And invoke the violet flame, in a session with somebody. Like I'll often, see, I had a lady this morning, I could see that mistrust was huge, unforgiveness. I jot a few things down, and then I just clear the energetic imprints and any residue of anything that they're holding. And it's not only just their own soul stuff. Sometimes it's, what they're holding for their families on an ancestral level. So if I'm called to, I'll do ancestral healing as well. I clear that. Sometimes I do inner child healing, though I have to say that it's a bit harder for some reason in the Akashic Records. You get really clear information about past lives, but not so clear about the current life.
Oh.
And there's definitely a huge trauma release happening on this planet. We can't carry all that heavy baggage. We can't carry the trauma into the new world that we're co-creating in the higher dimensions. So, and there are a lot of wonderful trauma modalities, but actually the Akashic Records is a good place to assist people to release trauma as well. So the healing process, there's a lot more to it, but every little person's process is different. Within the Akashic Records, you can move beyond time and space. And one of the techniques that I use a lot is I'll get a past life popping up that's sort of really resonating in someone's field and still really affecting them, not in a good way. And I can just see that there's a past life aspect of them that is not at peace. So what I do is I get them to close their eyes and imagine they're looking into the eyes, to see this past life self. And most people can describe, what they see. Like I had a lady this morning, I can see a young girl. It was exactly what I'd sort of told her. I felt it was a young girl, and she described her to me. And then I just get them to talk to that past life self until they're at peace, and just say things like, "Look, what happened wasn't your fault. You did the best you could.
Yeah.
Don't blame yourself," and just to calm them down. And then we can't really leave that past life self till the past life self's at peace. And that doesn't usually take too long, and they'll say, "Oh no, she's smiling," or "She's giving me a hug," or so. What you can do is you can move forwards, backwards in time, and address trauma as well. Like for example, say someone had a traumatic death, and they're still carrying those effects. What I've started to do, and what you actually can do, is you can get them to connect with that past life self who was burnt at the stake, or something.
Yes.
I've had a couple of people this week that were sort of pushed off bridges. That was a bit weird to me. And you can get them to surround them with love, as that's happening, so that traumatic experience that they've had on a soul level doesn't have the same charge. And there's all sorts. Like what I do in the records it's just the tip of the iceberg, really. But you can go back to past lives, and you can change the ending to the story.
Yes. Well, I'm glad you talked about the individuality, because I think it's important to note, especially with such a broad topic that's so deep, that people sense, well, we don't lose that individuality, and it's very much a unique experience within that category. But I'd like you to talk a bit about how you see this on the global scale, because I know we have to get on with our lives, but the fact is we are looking at the collective community as well, and we can see a few things going off at the moment. And what's your comments on that from your perspective and your experience within the Akashic Records?
Well, I think there's a huge shadow release going on, and there's a huge trauma release going on. And it's happening very intensely. It's sort of easy to see. People are getting really triggered. Like 2 years into COVID, obviously, people are stressed, people are anxious. I do think it's really messed with people's heads. I feel good about it because I feel I've been through much worse than this. I don't mind sort of sitting at home and, it's actually, I've quite enjoyed it. It was sort of during lockdowns, I could work really hard on my book and get it out there and stuff like that. So I'm grateful. But a lot of people, it's just very difficult. It's really bringing up and triggering very deep old fears and old patterns of persecution of people that have had lifetimes, where in authoritarian regimes where governments have taken away their rights and their power and so they're getting really triggered. But being triggered is good because we need a catalyst to release, But what I feel is that every single person on earth is going through their own process in their own way, in their own time, and that it's all very different. It's unique, and we're at the moment it's bizarre because I used to think about 5 years ago that most people believe what I believe, and now I don't think that anymore. I think, well, there's 8 billion people on the planet. It's almost like there's 8 billion different realities, and we've all got our own truth. But it is helping. We're all having to go deep inside, find our truth, act on it. I think everyone's in the right place doing what they're meant to be doing.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, the template for the future is the one of unity consciousness. And it's sort of anything but at the moment. Everything's getting blown apart, but you know how things have to get worse before they have to get better, and we will all, we will come back together. We'll get through this, and
Yes,
there's so much to look forward to. The Akashic Records can really help with the process because, as I said before, they can lift us out of all the fear and anxiety. So it's like, they can, if you're in the energy, it sort of lifts you up and you're in a sort of place where you're not so sort of bothered by what's going on around you and all the turmoil and everything. They also can help us release. There's a process in there that I use and that I teach other people to use for themselves and with others to release, all the sort of stuff, so that we need to release before we.
I do think. Yes. I was thinking this morning actually that I felt the same, but I was quite surprised by some of the fear that people accepted into their reality in the last few years. I was quite surprised actually, and really surprised. But I was thinking today, before we connected today, there's also a lot of people that are able to observe and to a point accept and to observe. And I think isn't it such a, well, you put those things together, observation and acceptance, you'll have a lot less problem, don't you think?
Oh, well, I think the best thing we can do at the moment is stay out of fear, stay out of anxiety, stay out of drama, and just keep our vibration high. And I'm so grateful to the Akashic Records because after being in their energy a lot, for the last 11 years, I think it has lifted my vibration. It's not always really high, but the more you're in that fifth dimensional energy, the more you become it. And that's probably one of the best things I think about it, because what I tell the students I teach is like, okay, you can learn how to access your Akashic record, but even if you don't give yourself readings or you don't give readings for anybody else, if you just every day open up the energy, like at first you can't be in the energy for too long, but you have to open it up slowly. And I never have mine open when I'm trying to sleep because, I'm getting on. I like a nice peaceful sleep. So some people love having them open when they're asleep because they say, oh, I have really exciting dreams,
Oh.
But, that over time I can just see, just like I noticed, like in the first 6 months that I learned to access them, just how I related differently to what, the tragedy that was happening in my family, the sadness, and it lifted me out of all that. Like over 11 years, it's just been so helpful, and that's probably one of the best things. And I think, obviously, the more anything that we think or feel goes out into the matrix or the field. So there's a fifth dimensional energy field that's just coming in really strongly. What some of my teachers say is by 2032 it's going to be here. So it's definitely there, and anything that we think or feel goes out and affects everybody. So any hatred, for example, it goes into the field, but it also comes back on you. And so it's better, if possible, like we can't be perfect, but just to put positive, loving, and you can just sit by yourself and not see anybody, but you can do, if you're meditating or in your Akashic record or whatever every day, and just putting that energy of love out there, like it's a huge help to all of humanity. And the way we react to what's going on this planet at the moment is going to determine how long it takes us to ascend as a planet.
Yeah.
We will get there, like we're well on the way, but if we get sort of caught up in drama along the way, it's just going to take longer.
Well, the word distraction comes to mind, because it's very difficult to be in that unity consciousness, or that quantum energy or beyond, while you're caught up in that. It becomes quite a point of discipline, doesn't it?
I know, and so I think the Akashic records are quite good, I think, in this way, because it's almost like they surround you in a bit of a little cloak of protection from all that.
Yes.
Yeah. And as your vibration lifts, like I loved drama, and I still get into it sometimes. I'm not saying I'm a human being, it's part of the course, but I've got like 4 sisters, and we loved it, It was always like gossip drama. But now, like, yeah, I'm not the same person I really was 11 years ago. And I've actually, 14 years ago, when my daughter got sick, because she was the catalyst for all this. And on a soul level, I'm just so grateful to her. And I've told her that, and she knows how I feel. Because our whole family, like, we're all different. Yes. I've got 2 other children as well, and they're incredible human beings. All 3 of them are. I'm so proud of them. And what I can see, like when you look at the bigger picture, this whole like crisis situation with dear old Alice sort of has made, got them to grow and evolve in ways that are totally preparing them for their mission. And, they're just beautiful souls. So it's all perfect. So I think the main thing the Akashic Records have taught me is, on a human level, when things just seem, the suffering so intense and it's, terrible, on a soul level, like it's always perfect. And I think that's what we can remember at the moment, that we're going through this huge, this situation on the planet that many think is sort of terrible, and they're very fearful and they can't cope with the uncertainty. Just to know, to grit our teeth, and we will get through it. And what we've got to look forward to, it'll be worth it.
Yeah, well, I think, with conversations, where our conversation and other ones, and even other interviews I've done, it really is a feeling of, if we get a bit of an overview, a bit of understanding, oh, okay, this is happening, it makes sense of it a little bit, because I think the mind needs a bit of that, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Well, I needed to make sense of, absolutely, with what was happening with my daughter. And, the old Akashic records, they are good at helping make sense, because you can ask lots of questions and you get all this information. And it helps you just have a higher perspective.
Yes. Well, with that in mind, what are the sort of the main, your book, From Tragic to Magic? I know there's a subtitle I want you to remind me of, but this book, what are some key points about this book? What are some highlights you'd like to share?
Well, what I tried to do in the book, it's called Tragic to Magic, Beyond Suffering with the Akashic Records. And correct. But so basically the whole theme of it is how individually and collectively we're really moving beyond suffering, and how the Akashic Records can help us do that. And it's the ascension process which will take us like into a different world and a different reality. And we are going to stop hurting each other, and we are going to stop killing each other. It's there. Like in the 5th dimensional world, we will be different. We won't be perfect, but life will be a lot easier.
Yeah.
Because I think, we have made it hard for ourselves. But what I tried to do in the book was just write it in a very simple way. so that anybody, and I made it separate from the first book so that anyone could just pick up, Tragic to Magic. I call one of them, the first book I call Magic, and the second book I call Tragic. But anyone could just pick up Tragic and just read it if they knew nothing about the subject. And I've got a glossary at the back to explain like a lot of the things, the terms, and I've got a lot of stories because I've got a lot of clients who gave me permission to tell their stories.
Yes.
So the main idea is just to help people see, where we've been, where we are now, where we're going, what we've got to look forward to, and how the Akashic Records can help us get there. And, there's lots of different ways. So I look, there's a number of healing chapters where I sort of talk about the healing techniques and things like that. There's there's chapters that sort of look at soul completion and releasing and letting go, because what we're really doing on the planet at the moment is sort of letting go of the old to create the space for the new to come in. Towards the end of the book, the energy just gets really, it's very nice energy. There's a chapter on multidimensionality, which, we're becoming much more multidimensional. There's a chapter on the soul, because to my mind, ascension is all about moving from being a human being in a human body to being our soul selves. So 3D to 5D is really like a movement from human to soul. And the Akashic Records, every time you're in there, you're connecting with your soul and its truth. And you become more intuitive. It's easier to live a more soul-centered and soul-directed life. So there's a whole chapter on the soul and what I know about the soul and its magnificence. And the key message towards the end is there's so much more to us than we think and we know. And the secret of that, and I can talk more about this if you want to, is in our DNA.
Yeah, go ahead.
And okay, because junk DNA, which is not really junk, to call it non-coding. And I believe, and what I understand is that, human beings have got a quantum chromosome. Because scientists look at our cells, and human beings have only got 24 chromosomes. No, 23 chromosomes, and every other mammal has 24. But we have got a 24th, but it's quantum. And of course, the DNA is in the chromosomes. And we've got this non-coding DNA, which I don't know if anyone follows Greg Braden, but I do.
Yes.
And in his books, he's basically postulated, but he's got new scientific evidence that, there's actually there's some star energy in our DNA. And that human beings, what he says, and there is evidence in his book, and I put this in my book, is that 200,000 years ago, there was some sort of intervention and with human being, with our DNA, that brought in this sort of whole capacity, soul capacity, divine capacity, connected us to our star heritage. And so all this DNA, which couldn't express itself in the third dimension because the energy vibration was so low, since 1987, but more, of course, since 2012, it's been being activated. And so all the abilities in this DNA are now, that, in the future, they're going to be part of who we are. One of the layers of DNA is the Akashic record. So the Akashic record's in there. There's another layer that's like a healing layer. And it's what I do with people is when you're in the quantum space of the Akashic records, it's easy to connect in with other quantum aspects within the physical body and within our energy field and elsewhere. So one of the things I often get people to do is actually to talk to their bodies, to talk to their cellular wisdom, and to instruct their bodies to release imprints or memories, or, to heal or whatever. So you can talk to your body, there's the wisdom there, but there's also that DNA. And in the Akashic Records, because it's fifth dimensional, it's easier to work with that DNA. And I bring that into the healing. And with somebody the other day, I actually reprogrammed the DNA. So this is quite a big topic.
Yes, it is.
But, I actually believe, it's not like we're souls that have always lived on Earth. We're not. All of us are star seeds. All of us have a connection to the stars. All of us a lot of us are connected to the Pleiades, because that's where they were what I understand and what I believe is that they were the last civilization, within our galaxy who went through the ascension process. So they're our star parents. The Syrians were their star parents. The Arcturians were their star parents. Some of us were Arcturians, some of us were Syrian. So we're very connected. And so I have to get back to the Akashic Records. But
no, go for it.
the Akashic Records are a place where it's easy to connect. And like sometimes with healing, I might bring in a star being to help somebody. And because we're in this little portal of fifth dimensional energy, it's a bit easier to bring them in and into that space. And so anyway, there's a much bigger picture to who we think we are and what we're capable of.
Yes, well,
And
I'm glad you talked about that. You can continue, of course. I just want to know, do you find people quite receptive? I think people are more receptive when they're actually feeling something directly. Obviously, at the moment, we're discussing it, and there's an audience. Do you find that people open to this quite easily? As it makes sense to them? To me, it all seems so.
I've never ever had anyone challenge me on it, but then I don't just walk up to a stranger on the street and talk like this. It's in my book. I haven't had anyone, tell me that I'm mad, or I think I've had a few friends and perhaps some of my family that I think have read it and maybe, but they haven't said anything.
Yeah.
And usually, like I talk like this when I'm teaching students, and they all seem to resonate with it. No one's ever sort of said. They all honestly, it's like on some deep level they believe it as well. But I don't expect people to believe everything. I don't. It's my truth, and I don't try to convert people either.
Yeah.
Most people don't even know what I do. Like I just stick under the radar. I think some of our neighbours think I'm some sort of counsellor, but I don't sort of advertise it, But then again, I'm proud of what I do. I'm not trying to hide it. Like if people ask me, I tell them. For a while there, my children used to say the dreaded question that they get asked was, "What does your mum do?"
Now that you've been on PS Paul Stewart, everyone's going to know.
It was quite funny. And of course, my husband, we both work for ourselves, and he teaches mindfulness, and he was a lawyer but hated it. And, it was always but he's a coach, so that's a bit more.
Yeah.
But I don't quite know how to describe me. But
with that in mind, being married to someone who's also interested in personal development and helping people in that, how does that work in the marriage, and how do you work with that together?
Well, it works quite well. There were a few years when I thought, I saw all our friends, there was one light worker, and then there was always a partner who was out there sort of in a regular job earning money, because, we never know what we're going to earn week to week. And I felt slightly jealous. But now I just know that we're quite similar. He just could not stay doing law and being a lawyer, and we've been looked after. We haven't sort of wanted for anything. We're not really driven by needing lots and lots of money, but everything we need sort of appears, and so it's actually been fine. And I think now that our children have left home, and because it's 44 years this year since we met.
Wow.
And my husband's he's in huge favour with me at the moment because he's painting the house. We both work from home, and we talk about not all the time, but it's really is wonderful to have. But doesn't believe in the Akashic. He believes in them, but it's not really his thing. He's not a past life fan, but he teaches mindfulness like this. He's got scores of spiritual books. Our house is full of them. I don't know if he's actually fully read both of mine. I've got an old boyfriend that has, so sometimes I mention that he's read them, but I bring that up. But look, I don't really expect that, because I respect he's got his thing, I've got my thing, but it sort of sometimes overlaps, and it's it's just become really nice actually, and I do feel lucky that it was one good thing in this lifetime. It's been good having that love and that support, and it's great being in a relationship where you're sort of getting closer with the years, and
Yeah.
And so it's
In a way, it's like
probably
seems
won't listen to this. He should listen to this interview because he'd be quite touched.
well,
Probably.
he might be on the other side of that wall, but he just can't admit it.
But no, he's really into a lot of spiritual things. He's done a lot of like ancestral healing for his family, and he loves all that. And I have got a chapter in my book about that. Like there's a chapter on ancestral healing.
Well, the
So
beauty is if he's not, this case aside, but in general, like you can't talk shop all the time, can you? I mean, it would just make you crazy. I don't
yeah,
always like to talk to fellow healers because it just goes in circles. I think sometimes you get out of each other's way and you really just encourage each other and enjoy and get on with your life because you still get your own thing, don't you?
well, you need to have normal friends. What I call normal friends. And I've got like a twin sister, and she's in a completely different mainstream world, and I love that.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's just, it's been a really good thing in this life too, just to come in with her. Like I was quite scared coming into this life. So what I understand, I didn't really want to come in alone.
Oh.
And I honestly didn't talk much till I was about 20 because my sister would always talk for me. So I thought, I don't really need to. And so anyway, it's an interesting thing. But when you've got access to the Akashic Records, you can actually ask about all these relationships, and it does sort of help understanding.
Yes.
With my
Well, it's
sister,
so interesting too, and helpful and interesting.
it is helpful, and it's not really her thing, the Akashic Records either, but she's open to it and she's supportive, and
Yes. I want to let people know that we're going to be doing a short guided experience,
yes,
and could you maybe introduce that? And we're going to spend several minutes in a quiet space. So I encourage people just to maybe remove any distractions or get comfortable, maybe drink some water. But
yeah. So what it is it's just connecting you with your soul mission, really. So what I'm going to do is take you back to a lifetime where you actually completed your soul mission and connect you with the energy of that lifetime, or the person, the soul aspect of you, or the person that you were then. One great thing about the Akashic Records is that you can go back to lifetimes where you had perfect health and pull in the energy. The Akashic Records are not all doom and gloom, it's not all being killed, murdered, persecuted, chased, betrayed. It's not all terrible. Like there are a lot of lifetimes where you've had a lot of joy, you've had positive experiences, and you can connect with, the gold, like in those lifetimes and in your soul timeline too. You can actually go forward in time. I've done this visualization. I'm not doing that, but I have done them where you go forward, and I've actually spoken to my fully ascended self that's got through where we are now on the planet, and I think he was a man, but it was, I got the year, I'll get back to the visualization soon. I got the year, it was 2250. So it's a wee bit, it's in another life. And I saw this very androgynous looking person. And it turned out that he's a history teacher. And I was thrilled. I thought, God, I love the way, like if you look at people's lives, there's sometimes a pattern and there's
yes,
gifts and talents they carry through.
yes.
And in this life, I did a master's degree in history, and then I was a history teacher, and I loved it, in the classroom. And now I've been teaching soul history. And in this future life, I was teaching the history of barbaric planet Earth before the shift. And my future self looked at me and he said, I'm so sorry for you. He was so sympathetic. He said, I don't know how you can stand living in such a terrible place, where everyone's sort of hurting each other and killing each other, and it's so barbaric and cruel. And I sort of thought, well, actually, I'm quite happy now. Like my life's a lot better than it used to be. But anyway, so it made me sort of realize that there's a lot, there is a lot to look forward to.
Yeah,
And it also made me sort of see that I will be coming back.
Oh.
Even, how sometimes you think I'm never coming back. So in this visualization, we'll connect with this a lifetime where you did fulfill your soul mission. We'll bring in that energy to help you fulfill it in this lifetime. We'll connect with qualities and attributes you had that helped you then, pull them in, and, we'll ask to be shown, what your mission is in this lifetime.
Well,
so it's going to take about 6 minutes.
Okay.
I'm going to have to. Oh, sorry, Paul.
I said that sounds good. I'm going to let me know when you're starting, because I'm going to close my eyes and join in.
Okay.
Then
okay.
Ring your bell if I don't come back.
I'll take over.
Okay.
So I'm going to open everyone's Akashic record and then close them at the end, which is probably a bit naughty, because when I teach my students, never ask anybody's open anyone's Akashic record without their permission. So if you don't want your Akashic record open and then closed collectively, then don't do this exercise.
Oh, thanks for that. Yeah.
Okay, so that's for everybody. So we'll start now.
Okay, I'm going to close my eyes. Thank you.
Okay, oh, no, lovely. Okay, so close your eyes. I ask that the Akashic records of all those listening to this now be opened. Silently in your mind, ask to be shown a lifetime where you successfully completed your soul mission. In your mind's eye, see yourself as you were then. See yourself as you listened to your heart and worked tirelessly to fulfill your soul purpose. Now imagine that you are standing in front of your past life self. Introduce yourself to them by saying, I am, and say your name, a future aspect of you. I am, say your name, a future aspect of you. Now ask them, what qualities did you have that helped you to complete your mission? What qualities did you have that helped you to complete your mission? Listen carefully to what they have to say. Now hug your past life self. Merge your energy with theirs. And pull in all of the qualities and attributes they had that can help you now. Now ask to be shown your life purpose in this lifetime. Now ask your past life self for any help you feel you will need to fulfill this purpose. Listen carefully to anything that they have to say to you. Thank them for coming to see you today. I ask that the Akashic records of all those listening to this now be closed.
Great. Thank you, Chris. I know we're going on faith. People are just able to listen into this, and maybe they do it again. And probably a myriad of experiences there. Some probably, do you think some people are very visual and some people are just simply in the energy and receiving without knowing it?
Yeah, I think people are all different. I've discovered that when I teach people how to access the records. Some see pictures, some see pictures and get a lot of words, it's different. Some don't, just get energy.
Actually, when you went in the beginning, I just saw this male, just very powerful, very sort of happy in self, working with this water, just moving this water around, like just moving it and swirling it and moving it around. And it was just like, that was what they did. And yeah, that was interesting. I didn't get anything on the soul purpose one.
You didn't? So what do you think your mission in that lifetime was? Did you, with the swirling?
I think it was nothing in particular. It was more like I didn't really put words to it. I just saw that, and I just saw this just in the moment, very present, and not human emotion, but a light and you might say a happiness or an essence of whatever, and at peace, and but dynamic and powerful, just moving this water around. So when I think of water, I think of healing, but and sort of power to, moving life around,
So that's what you're really doing for people,
Mm.
and sort of stilling the waters, calming the waters. Which is, so you're doing that in a lot of ways, giving people hope. Oh, sorry.
That's probably roughed up a few waters here and there too, to be honest, Chris.
I did that this morning, and this past life self I'd never met before sort of walked out, and he was like a explorer. Like, it wasn't like Francis Drake or anyone or Captain Cook, but he was just an explorer, and he just had huge self-belief, and he was adventurous, and he had these amazing qualities, and he was going into uncharted waters, and I just thought, well, that's where my life's heading now. So it was great to chat with him, because
awesome.
I pulled in like a lot of his. I didn't know of his existence, because a lot of my lifetimes I've been victims. But this was a male life that was very strong in who he was, where he was going, hardworking. So he had some great qualities for me to connect up with.
Well, I love that one, because I know in my life, exploring and adventure has definitely been a theme. And whether it's been the world or cultures, but also myself and my own development, but and my feeling and the joy of being, but also in this whole human development, quantum and energetic and vibrational field. It really is an adventure. So I think that what you did with their guided experiences, well, you took everyone on a bit of an adventure, and I think that's really appreciated. So thank you for doing it.
And I think, like, we really have to all realize we're on an adventure now.
Yeah.
And try to see that where we're heading, it's actually exciting, and not be scared of it, and just to go with the flow and know that, we just have to follow the path, and it's going to be an exciting one, and it is going to take us from tragic to magic. There's a lot of magic. There's a lot of magic out there, and the magic to me is, moving up into a higher, more positive vibration, the joy of connecting with our soul, the joy of connecting with our truth, and the Akashic Records can help with all of those things.
Well, I'm so glad you shared all this and gave us that experience, and I just see that humanity is really benefiting from people like yourself, other people that I've interviewed, or many souls, thousands, millions of souls that have taken some time to take it on, look at their life, look at themselves, to explore their natural directions and follow their intuitions and open up these tools. So you've got these tools here. I'm actually going to be sharing, just to let you know and others, that at the bottom of the page, I'm going to be sharing your contact details, your book details. I'll put my details down the bottom as well. And I really invite people to take a look, talk to Chris, reach out to Chris. I know your courses are really helping people and really opening people to their potentials in a really, I think, fun way. I mean, that's fun, doing a guided thing like that, I think.
No, well, I love what I do, and to be perfectly honest, this lifetime for me was all about redemption, because my last one was terrible. And I've had a lot. So I'm an old soul, and I've had so many lives where I just haven't reached out the finish line, or I've let circumstances obstruct me, and so it was almost like I knew from day one. In this one, I just had to sort of go for it, and it's not always easy, but there's huge rewards. And I think all of us that are on earth at this time in bodies, we're not here by chance. We're volunteered to come in. We don't all have to do something, write books or do anything, but even if you just sit and meditate and you send love out, like, everybody has got a job to do, and deep down I think we do know what it is, and it's just so important. It's sort of all hands on deck at the moment. It's a bit like the world's a sinking ship, and we need to keep it afloat. And but we're really going to get there now. So it's exciting. It's very exciting.
Yes, it makes me think, well, why not just be the ocean and then let the ship come up a little bit itself?
I think that's what you are. Like, you're the water, aren't you? That beautiful, calming, swirling. Yeah. So thanks. Thanks, Paul, for
Well, absolutely.
giving me this opportunity.
Is there anything you want to say in closing? I know you've probably just done that with a lovely summary of the Akashic Records, but is there any main point you want to get across before we finish? And then we'll thank our viewers and we'll move on with our days.
Okay. I think, the Akashic Records, they're a fantastic ascension tool, because they carry all the energy of where we've been, like with the old energy, on a soul level, all those memories, which we're trying to transcend. But they also hold those beautiful potentials for the future. And, they carry, like they're a portal to a repository of this beautiful quantum energy, which is coming in, as I say, just flooding in at the moment, but it's going to be everywhere by 2032, and it's what we're getting used to. And it's so, they're a great way just to a safe, enjoyable, enlightening way just to transition from the old world into the new world that we're creating. And yeah, so I always say they're the best ascension tool I know, and they can help us so much, with that process.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Chris Wilson. It's been a real delight speaking with you and your gifts and your experience and insight about the Akashic Records. And thank you to the viewers. And I know that you've probably really enjoyed this, and feel free to go over that experience again, play it again, and see what comes up the second time. And wish you all a lovely day, and thank you, Chris, and thank you for the good work you're doing.
Thank you.